Howdy y'all! Time for another story. This time I'm going to be reading another Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale, and it is entitled The False Collar. Now, if you don't know what a false collar is, it is a garment that it's very old-fashioned. People don't wear them anymore. It's a strip of material, probably cotton or linen, that men would wear around their neck as a collar, and then they tied their tie around. So that's what a false collar is. And in this story, the false collar and other inanimate objects are given qualities of life, like talking and stuff like that. So just so you're aware, and this is a Hans Christian Andersen story entitled The False Collar, read to you by myself, Tennille Milam. The False Collar. There was once a fine gentleman, all of whose movables were a bootjack and a hair comb. But he had the finest false collars in the world, and it is about one of these collars that we are now to hear a story. It was so old that it began to think of marriage, and it happened that it came to be washed in the company of a garter. "Nay," said the collar, "never did I see anything so slender and so fine, so soft and so neat. May I not ask your name?" "That I shall not tell you," said the garter. "Where do you live?" asked the collar. But the garter was so bashful, so modest, and thought it was quite a strange question to answer. "You are certainly a girdle," said the collar, "that is to say, an inside girdle. I see well that you are both for use and for ornament, my dear lady." "I will thank you not to speak to me," said the garter. "I think I have not given the least occasion for it." "Well, yes, when one is as handsome as you," said the collar, "that is occasion enough." "Don't come so near me, I beg of you," said the garter. "You look so much like those men folks." "I am also a fine gentleman," said the collar. "I have a bootjack and a hair comb." But that was not true, for it was his master who had them, but he boasted. "Don't come so near me," said the garter. "I am not accustomed to it." "Prude!" exclaimed the collar, and then it was taken out of the washing tub. It was starched and hung over the back of a chair in the sunshine, and then it was laid on the ironing blanket. Then came the warm box iron. "Dear lady," said the collar, "dear widow lady, I feel quite hot, and I am quite changed. I begin to unfold myself. You will burn a hole in me. Oh, I offer you my hand." "Rag," said the box iron, and went proudly over the collar, for she fancied that she was a steam engine that would go on the railroad and draw the wagons. "Rag," said the box iron again. The collar was a little jagged at the edge, and so came the long scissors to cut off the jagged part. "Oh," said the collar, "you are certainly the first opera dancer. How well you can stretch your legs out. It is a most graceful performance that I have ever seen. No one can imitate you." "I know it," said the scissors. "You deserve to be a baroness," said the collar. "All that I have is a fine gentleman, a bootjack, and a hair comb. If I only had the barony." "Do you seek my hand?" said the scissors, for she was angry, and without more ado she cut him, and then he was condemned. "Oh, I shall now be obliged to ask the hair comb. It is surprising how well you are preserving your teeth, miss," said the collar. "Have you ever thought of being betrothed?" "Yes, of course, you may be sure of that," said the hair comb. "I am betrothed to the bootjack." "Betrothed!" exclaimed the collar. Now there was no other to court, and so he despised it. A long time passed away, and then the collar came into the rag chest at the paper mill. There was a large company of rags. The fine were by themselves and the coarse were by themselves, just as it should be. They all had much to say, but the caller had the most to say, for he was a real boaster. I have had such an immense number of sweethearts, said the caller. I could not be in peace. It is true, I've always had a fine starched-up gentleman, and I had a boot jack and a hair comb, which I never used. You should have seen me then. You should have seen me when I lay down. You shall never forget it. And my first love, she was a girdle, so fine, so soft, and so charming. And she threw herself into a tub of water for my sake. And there was also a widow, who became glowing hot, but I left her standing till she got black again. And there was also the first opera dancer, and she gave me the cut which I now go with. She was so ferocious. My own hair comb was in love with me. She lost all of her teeth from heartache, yes, and have lived to see much of that sort of thing, have I. But I'm extremely sorry for the the girdle, that went into the water tub. I have much on my conscience, and I want to become white paper. And it became so. All the rags were turned into white paper. But the caller came to be just this very piece of paper right here, in which this story is printed on. And that was because it boasted so terribly afterwards of what had never happened to it. It would be well for us to beware that we may not act in a similar manner, for we can never know if we may not, in the course of time, also come to the rag chest and be made into white paper, and then have our whole life history printed out on it, even the most secret, and be obliged to run about and tell on ourselves, just like the caller. That's the end. Thanks for joining me, and until our next story time, y'all be sweet.